I'll show you how to make a render in a hand-drawn style using the Compositor node. So this is my base scene, and then when I render it, it looks like this. So to start off, so you start with the image going in, that goes to a filter set to Sobel. It goes into a normal, and then a color ramp with ease on, a dark gray at below 0.1, and then a white at almost 0. And then it also goes to a shadow separation where pure black is at 0 and pure white is at 0.005 set to constant. And an ease color ramp with black at 0, a lighter gray at 0.148, and an even lighter gray at 0.4, and then a white at 0.5 about. And then moving on, we have the first one, I'll call this line art, plugged into a displace using a noise texture as the vector, and then mix these two with a darken node set to 1, put that into a color ramp with pure white at 0.4 and then black at 1, and then put that in a multiply with, well, let's go down here first. So for this, I call it downward wave. On the side, it is just the wood texture or the wave texture, and you set this to the sort of a crosshatch texture. And if you keep it at lower values with lower turbulence, it will give a crosshatch look, but the way that I have it set up right now will give it a more shaded look. And then you have a dark gray at 0, and I put the white at 0.2 for both of them, and then multiplied them with 1. And then I put that into this place with the same noise texture from before. And then I multiplied that using this as the factor, and this as the second image, this as the first image. All right, moving on to paper grain. This gives it that texture that just shows this whole background, which kind of how actual paper looks. I just got a paper image texture from online, put it into a color ramp to get more black, put the black at 0.2. I took the shadow separation from earlier, and then the second value, the first shadow separation goes into the first value on divide. And then for the second value, I use 10, but that will control the highlights and like how dark everything else that isn't the shadows is. And then I will add that to my paper image. And then I will also put the paper image color ramp into a multiply with the original image set to 1. And then I have a color ramp. This is a weird one. I have pure black at 0, light gray at very low amount, 0.007, a darker gray at 0.018, and then white at 1. And that just makes it more variation in the shadows and more of that noise texture showing up. And then for line imperfection, when you draw, your lines are going to be perfect. So I just have a cloud texture. The scale is at 0.5, I believe. And then black at 0, black at 1, and then white halfway between. Set this to as the vector with the original image going into it with a pretty high displacement, but not too high, or it's just going to look like wavy lines. And now coming up here to the border, this is pretty optional, but I'd include it because it makes it look more official than without. So I'll just have you copy these box masks because this is just going to give an outline to the art, and then a noise texture into a multiply with a very low value. Put that into an add with an add box mask, and then put that into a color ramp with black at 0, white at 1. Put that into an add, and then for the first image in the add, the same box mask set to subtract, and then add that to your noise texture, and then the same color ramp but with a light gray as the value at 1, and then put that into a blur set to about 10, and then this one pure black at 0, pure white at 0.155 set to constant, and then mix with 0.042 of pure white. And now going down here, we have that pure white mix thing going into the factor for this. We have our line imperfection going into the bottom node, and then we have our paper grain going into this top node of a color burn, and then this color burn goes into the bottom of a mix node, and for the top of the mix node, we come over here, that's the displace that comes out of this shading, and then with the factor, it's just going to be a blur. And then for yellowing of paper, I put this in. I mixed it with a factor of 1, and then the second image is just going to be a color, and it's just going to be slightly yellow. And that gives it a bit more of a yellow texture because paper is not completely white, so it makes it a bit more realistic. This border color matching I'll get to in a bit. It makes it a bit more realistic, but it's not a huge difference, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. And then other than that, you're pretty much done. So, as you can see, this is a bit more interesting. It has these two box masks, which are roughly the same, except for this second value. And then another box mask down here. And I'll just let you copy this down because it's a bit more confusing. This just allows the border to blur a bit with the art inside, which gives it a bit more of a cleaner transition from the actual shading to the outside border. I multiply after blurring it very heavily and put that into a mix with the yellowing of the paper output into the bottom image, and then put that through another blur with black at 0, pure white at 1, and then put that into the factor of this mix right here, and then bring your paper image texture back. Keep it pure black at 0, keep it gray at 1, and then, yeah, that's about it. And I have this also as a blend file that is available for download in the description. And that is how you can make your renders go from looking like blank scene to looking like hand-drawn art. That's it.